The sun hit the plains like a neon hammer, making the rocks squint under its glare and Kale swear under his breath. He squinted too, though not from the light. He was staring at a cluster of fossils jutting out of the ground like some interstellar junkyard sale, glittering faintly with what he could only describe as probably very expensive space dust. Around him, the rest of the patrol milled, muttering about heat exhaustion and the endless absurdity of guarding rocks that didn't shoot lasers, though that might have been their first mistake judging by Kale's luck. He bent down, poked a fossil with the edge of his laser tool, and immediately recoiled as it hummed under his touch. "Yep," he said loudly, as if addressing an audience of invisible spectators. "Just a normal Tuesday in the middle of nowhere, petting rocks that think they're alive. Good times, people, good times." Corporal Mirth, whose sense of humor leaned dangerously close to sarcasm, snorted. "They said we'd see alien life, Sergeant. I didn't think they meant rocks with a personality disorder." Kale ignored her and crouched closer, noticing the faint carvings along the surface of one jagged piece. Lines that weren't random, but deliberate, circuits etched into stone, as if the planet itself had tried to write a memo to whoever would bother reading it millions of years later. "Well," Kale muttered, "either this rock is sending a message, or it's a very confusing invitation to a dinner party. I'm good with either." He tapped the carvings with a fingertip, and they glowed faintly blue, pulsing in a rhythm that made him tap his own chest like a drum. "Space Morse code. Cool, very helpful, and yes, I promise I'll call you back, Rock." The patrol shifted uneasily, keeping a safe distance. The younger soldiers whispered that the hum reminded them of alien karaoke, and Kale decided to lean into it. "Oh, come on," he said, gesturing wildly with his tool. "You think we're the first species to drop a mixtape on a rock? Give me a break. I half expect the fossils to start beatboxing next." Night fell like a curtain, and with it came a cold wind that carried an almost musical vibration through the plains. The fossils began to resonate in unison, each one faintly glowing as if acknowledging Kale's jokes. He froze, listening. "Okay," he said, squinting at the horizon like he expected the rocks to start dancing. "Maybe this is less karaoke and more alien conference call. Don't worry, I've got the number on speed dial." He chuckled to himself, fully aware that talking to glowing, humming rocks probably wasn't a sign of sanity. By the time the first hints of Elithra's ship appeared in the sky, Kale had established a running commentary with the fossils, assigning each one a personality. There was Gerald, who hummed slightly off-key, Susan, who glowed in defiance of the others, and Tiny, a particularly small fossil he'd accidentally kicked. "See, guys," Kale said, holding up the laser tool in a mock salute. "Teamwork makes the dream work. And yes, if she sees us talking to rocks, I'll take full credit for explaining it as advanced negotiation techniques." The ship descended slowly, its crystalline surface refracting the alien sunlight into 1,000 sharp rainbows. Elithra stepped out, tall, poised, with long ears that seemed to float slightly above her shoulders, catching the light like delicate filaments. Kale swallowed a chuckle when she looked directly at him, her expression unreadable. "Ah," he said, raising one hand in a half-salute. "I see you're here for the karaoke session. Don't worry, Gerald's in fine form tonight." Elithra's eyes flicked to the humming fossils, and for a moment there was a silence that could have been a diplomatic standoff or the beginning of an interstellar comedy sketch. She tilted her head slightly, the long ears brushing the wind, and Kale took it as a small win. "Okay, no judgment," he said. "I know it looks weird, but they're very sensitive souls. You'd be surprised what a good joke about meteor showers does for their morale." The Queen didn't speak immediately, which gave Kale enough time to pace dramatically around the fossils, tapping them like a conductor directing an invisible orchestra. "And here," he announced, "we have the piece de resistance, the one that hums exactly like your uncle's old spaceship engine. I call him Bob. Bob's very wise. Bob tells great stories. Bob also refuses to take bribes, which I respect." Elithra finally spoke, her voice smooth, with just enough amusement to make Kale nervous. "You find humor in strange places, Sergeant." Kale grinned, sweeping his arms toward the array of fossils. "I like to think of it as survival. If you can laugh at glowing, singing rocks, you can survive just about anything. Plus, someone has to keep the spirits of the team up. Gerald's been a little down lately. He's convinced Tiny is plotting against him." She raised one elegantly arched eyebrow, and Kale felt a jolt of recognition, like he was being quietly, gently judged. "Tiny's plotting," she said slowly, almost like testing the syllables in the alien language of humor. Kale nodded solemnly. "Oh yes, he's sneaky, but that's why we love him." They spent hours among the fossils, Kale joking, Elithra watching, occasionally correcting him with a faintly amused sigh or a pointed comment that somehow made him feel both ridiculous and understood at once. Together, they began decoding the carvings, revealing stories of interstellar travelers, warnings of disasters long past, and subtle instructions for collaboration across worlds. Each discovery carried weight, but Kale's irrepressible humor kept the mood from crushing them. "So," he said at one point, pointing at a particularly intricate symbol, "apparently someone left instructions for building a space bakery here. Or a trap, one of the two. I vote bakery." Elithra allowed herself a small laugh, the sound soft but like a ripple over the plains. Kale caught it, gave a mock bow, and said, "Thank you, thank you. I try to make archaeology fun. Now, who's up for a fossil-inspired punchline?" As the night stretched, stars wheeling overhead, the unlikely team forged a connection that neither fully understood yet. A soldier who talked to rocks like they were old friends, and a queen whose ears caught every subtle vibration, every tiny joke, every pulse of history embedded in the planet. They were a team in the making, and if a few centuries of mysterious fossils could survive quietly in the ground, then surely a human soldier and an alien queen could find their rhythm too, even if it started with a lot of bad jokes. Kale woke to the hum of the fossils vibrating faintly beneath his bunk, or at least he thought it was the fossils. He rubbed his eyes, muttering, "If Gerald starts singing before breakfast, I swear I'm charging rent," and immediately regretted the joke because the vibration responded with a subtle pulse, like a polite chuckle from something that definitely wasn't human. Outside, Elithra waited, poised at the edge of the landing platform, her long ears catching the early sunlight, swaying almost imperceptibly as if she, too, had a rhythm the world hadn't yet learned to hear. Kale stumbled over, tripping on his own boots but catching himself with a dramatic flourish. "Morning, your glow-eared majesty," or, if you prefer, commander of the Interstellar Karaoke Corps. Elithra tilted her head, the corners of her mouth twitching in amusement. "Sergeant Kale," she said, voice smooth, "your humor is as persistent as your curiosity. Do you always speak to things that cannot answer?" Kale gestured at the fossils around the platform. "Depends. Rocks, obviously yes. Occasionally plants. If I'm desperate, I'll try shouting at the vacuum of space. But mostly, yes, I talk to things that ignore me. Builds character." He paused, then lowered his voice to a mock whisper. "Also, they give better advice than some people I've met." Elithra's lips quirked, and Kale considered this a victory. They walked side by side toward the largest fossil formation, a jagged array of crystalline spires that shimmered with patterns nobody else seemed capable of reading. Kale waved a hand dramatically. "Behold, the galaxy's most passive-aggressive messaging system. I swear, it's like someone left a voicemail from 3 millennia ago, and now it expects us to decode it before lunch." She crouched beside him, studying the carvings with meticulous precision, and Kale tried not to stare at the way her ears flicked in response to the faint hums. "Do your people leave messages like this often?" he asked. "I mean glowing rocks, very flashy, very polite though. Only when they wish to endure for thousands of years without being misunderstood," she said. "These fossils contain histories and warnings, not merely decorative sentiment." Kale grinned. Ah, so like an interstellar group chat that nobody responds to, got it. He poked a shard of the largest fossil and immediately yelped as it pulsed beneath his fingers. Right, they punch back. Good to know. Interactive messaging. That explains the mysterious humming. My phone never did this. Elithra suppressed a laugh and drew closer, tapping the carvings with long, precise fingers. You misunderstand. They do not punch back, they communicate. That pulse you feel is information. Kale straightened, eyes wide. Information, wow, and here I thought they were just ticklish. Okay, let's translate. I'm ready for some ancient alien wisdom, hopefully something about baking. Preferably pastries. She ignored the joke and traced a pattern along the largest shard. These markings indicate migratory routes of your species, your ancestors, long before you arrived on this planet. Patterns repeat, cycles endure. They warn of instability if ignored. Kale tilted his head. Migratory routes, wait. Are you saying the fossils know where humans were, and that we might mess something up if we ignore them? Elithra nodded, her ears brushing faintly against his sleeve. Kale blinked, then coughed awkwardly. Totally. Don't worry about me, I've got sarcasm to cover the rest of it. Hours passed with Kale narrating every pulse, every glow, like a conductor commenting on the orchestra he couldn't quite see. And now, ladies and gentlemen, he announced, crouching over a particularly dense set of carvings, the part where the fossils tell us who got lost in space. Spoiler, probably everyone, but that's why we bring snacks and humor, both essential for survival. Elithra occasionally corrected him, but there was a rhythm to it. He would joke, she would offer precise insight. The fossils would hum in response as if to say, yes, carry on, human, your nonsense is tolerated. Kale chuckled at the thought, patting the nearest crystal shard like a cat. See, they love me, don't question it. Mid-afternoon, they were interrupted by a minor flare from one of the fossils, a spike of light that shot toward the sky like a small beacon. Kale jumped back, waving his hands. Okay, alarm, not alarm. You didn't have to startle me like that. I almost did a somersault. Elithra didn't flinch. She knelt beside the flashing shard and traced a sequence with her fingers. It is not a warning, it is a directive. It guides those who seek understanding. Kale peered closer, squinting at the sequence. Directive, huh? So these fossils are like space GPS with mood swings, got it. Honestly, I think Bob, remember Bob, would approve. Together, they followed the sequence deeper into the fossil field, moving past jagged spires, over crystalline outcrops, and around glowing caverns that pulsed faintly as though breathing. Kale narrated the journey like a tour guide with a penchant for drama. To your left, you'll see a rare formation that suspiciously resembles a penguin. Not real, don't touch. To your right, also not a penguin, probably a very judgmental space dog. Keep moving. Elithra allowed herself a soft laugh, shaking her head. You are difficult to take seriously, Sergeant Kale. Thank you, Kale said solemnly, bowing. I try, it's a gift. By late evening, they reached the core of the fossil formation, where the carvings became intricate, almost like a map overlaid with musical notation. Kale whistled low. Wow, okay, this is impressive, also slightly terrifying, but mostly impressive. Elithra traced the markings, speaking slowly. Here is the record of events that shaped this planet. Here is the knowledge that, if shared correctly, could prevent mistakes your species has made repeatedly. Kale scratched his head. So basically, these rocks are old space teachers, and were the slowest students in history. Elithra tilted her head, the long ears catching the glow of the fossils. Perhaps, yet even the slowest student can contribute something valuable. Kale smiled faintly, a rare moment of seriousness beneath the humor. Guess we'll see. Between you, me, and Gerald, I think we've got a shot. He gestured at the fossils around them. Let's decode your mysteries. If nothing else, we'll have enough stories for interstellar karaoke night. Elithra's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, acknowledging his joke without dismissing the importance of the work before them. And as the night deepened, With the hum of the fossils like a quiet symphony, Kale realized that humor wasn't just survival, it was a bridge. Between species, between worlds, between past and present. And for the first time, he felt that maybe, just maybe, understanding could be contagious. Kale woke with the same humming vibration beneath his bunk, only this time it felt urgent, like someone had left a voicemail marked high importance and forgotten to include the punchline. He groaned, rubbed his eyes, and muttered, "Great, probably Gerald again." Or Tiny finally staging a coup. Outside, Elithra was already waiting, standing at the edge of the fossil field with her long ears swaying in the alien wind, catching the faint glow from the horizon. Kale stumbled over, trying for a dramatic entrance, only to trip over a loose rock. Ah, gravity, my old nemesis. You never get invited to parties, but here you are. Elithra arched an eyebrow, and Kale bowed theatrically. Sergeant Kale reporting for duty, Your Humorous Majesty. I assume the fossils have an urgent message. They do, Elithra said, and I trust you will approach this seriously. Sirius is my middle name, Kale said, though he could feel the weight behind her gaze. Right after Jokester, of course. The hum of the fossils had shifted, pulsing faster now, sending faint beams of light across the plains like a signal. Kale crouched beside one of the larger shards and tapped it. Well, someone's excited. Either that or Tiny's finally taken over Gerald's playlist. Not that I mind a bit of chaos with my morning caffeine. Elithra moved beside him, her fingers tracing the carvings. These patterns, they indicate a danger, one that could affect both your colonies and mine if ignored. Your species' arrival here triggered a resonance in the fossils, one that now requires intervention. Kale's eyes widened. Danger? Okay. Do we mean like get eaten by giant space worms dangerous, or bureaucracy will crush your soul dangerous? Elithra's lips twitched in a near smile. More geological in nature. Catastrophic if misunderstood. Kale took a deep breath, joking to mask his nerves. Ah, the old catastrophic geology trick. Classic. I love a good plot twist before breakfast. Shows you care. They spent hours decoding the pulses, the fossils vibrating and glowing as if eager to share their knowledge. Kale narrated the process with commentary that balanced absurdity with insight. So apparently these carvings predict a seismic event, the kind that rearranges continents, or, if you're unlucky, planetary real estate. And here I was thinking Monday was tough. Elithra corrected his interpretations with precise elegance, but she didn't scold him. Instead, there was a rhythm forming. Kale's humor softened the tension, and her insight steered them toward clarity. Together, they discovered that the fossils contained instructions not just for survival, but for active intervention. A mechanism buried within the planet's core that, if activated correctly, could stabilize the impending instability. Kale scratched his head. So, let me get this straight. We're basically going to play planetary repairman with a manual written in glow-in-the-dark hieroglyphics, while trying not to accidentally turn the place into a galactic pancake. Elithra allowed herself a small laugh, her long ears flicking with amusement. Essentially, they descended into the caverns where the fossils had first been discovered, following the mapped sequence embedded in the carvings. Kale narrated as they went. To your left, potential magma pocket. To your right, more rocks with personalities. I see Gerald has recruited a few more assistants, very community-oriented. Finally, they reached the control chamber, an intricate array of crystalline panels, wires humming with energy that seemed alive. Kale froze, staring at the glowing interface. Well, this is fancy. If I press the wrong button, do we explode, implode, or get a lecture from the Queen? Elithra's hands moved over the controls with practiced precision. Trust the patterns. They will guide you. Kale nodded, trying to focus, but his humor surfaced anyway. Patterns. Right. Nothing like following ancient glowing shapes to save the planet. And here I thought my greatest skill was sarcastic commentary. They worked together, following the fossils' pulses as Elithra interpreted the sequences, and Kale applied practical adjustments, sometimes clumsy, sometimes inspired. The hum rose to a crescendo, and for a moment the cavern vibrated like it was laughing along with Kale's commentary. See, planet's enjoying itself. Very polite for something about to destroy half the continent. Finally, with a synchronized press of keys and a pulse of energy, the system stabilized. The ground beneath them stopped trembling, the fossils dimmed to a soft glow, and the cavern seemed to exhale. Kale sank against a crystalline wall, exhausted but grinning. Well, that was a productive Tuesday. We saved the planet and still made it in time for dinner. I call that a win. Elithra looked at him, her long ears brushing against the soft glow of the fossils. You have grown, Sergeant Kale. You have learned to combine insight with levity. Kale laughed softly. I learned from the best teacher, a queen who tolerates sarcasm and glowing rocks. He gestured toward the fossils. I might actually miss these little guys, especially Bob. She allowed herself a small smile. Perhaps they will remember you fondly as well. When they returned to the landing platform, the human queen waited, observing the results of their work. Kale gave a dramatic salute. Mission accomplished, Your Majesty. No exploding planets, no interstellar mishaps, and I managed to keep the jokes flowing the entire time. The Queen's lips curved slightly. I see you have formed an unexpected alliance. Kale nodded, glancing at Elithra, who returned the gesture with a quiet, dignified smile. Yes, turns out humor and patience are surprisingly good tools for diplomacy and planetary repair. As the starship prepared to depart, Kale watched Elithra step aboard, her long ears catching the sunlight. You know, he said softly, we make a pretty good team. Maybe next time we can teach the fossils some jokes. Elithra's lips quirked into a faint smile. Perhaps, and perhaps they will finally appreciate your humor. Kale chuckled. I like my odds. Anyway, if we survived this, I think I can survive anything. The fossils behind them pulsed one last time like a silent cheer. Kale smiled, realizing that he had changed. He was still sarcastic, still joking, but he had learned to see patterns, to read subtle messages, to understand another world. Humor remained his shield and bridge. But now he carried insight too, a new respect for patience, intelligence, and the delicate bonds that could grow between beings who seemed utterly different. As the starship lifted off, Kale glanced at Elithra, and she glanced back, a silent understanding passing between them. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, he felt that between laughter, insight, and a few glowing rocks, anything might be possible. And somehow, that thought felt like victory.